time to get the stakes party started on Friday on the Kentucky Oaks undercard. The first graded stakes race of the day has some quality fillies and mares in there. We'll talk about Idiomatic. We'll talk about the La Troienne in just a moment with our first guest of the day for Kentucky Oaks Friday. But I want to let all of you know about the Kentucky Derby past performances that are available right now at drf.com. They have packages, all sorts of different tools that you need. If you're someone who wants more help with the betting strategies, David Aragona and Marcus Hirsch have that for you. If you're someone who likes to use the Timeform US PPs, you can get those with the all access. There'll be versions with the Clocker report too. So whatever you need to really succeed this weekend for Oaks and for Derby, they've gotten you taken care of at drf.com. And one lady who does a fantastic job handicapping the races wherever she's handicapping or just covering the races or providing interviews and providing content. I love sometimes when it's not even the handicapping stuff, it's just the conversations with owners or breeders or folks who have great histories that maybe we don't get to hear from all that often. Ren Carothers joins me. You've probably seen Ren at Tampa doing stuff with ABR. I know she was out on Keeneland this meet doing a really fun show with Alexa Zepp and a couple others. We all know Alexa from DRF too. So Ren Carothers joins me. How you doing, Ren?
Hey, Gino. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk with you. I always mention that one of my real sort of unofficial handicapping mentors, someone who I watched, and it wasn't that he would always answer any questions that I had too. So it was someone that I just had try to model a lot of my handicapping after. The way he approached the handicapping, the way he approached the gambling, is your husband Matt. And congratulations, you guys just celebrated another anniversary.
Yes,
and that's on. I tell you, I think all the time, it's on my mom's calendar every year,
right,
because I was at the wedding. I got to share it with you guys there, and so from the year that I went, my mom will do her calendars and we'll save it, and then we'll go over the next year's stuff. And so guys, for the whole time since then, you've been on the family calendar with the anniversary.
Can I tell you how much I love that? Can you believe it was 10 years ago?
I know. Oh
my gosh.
So crazy. But
I know. We're parents now.
We have kids that are going to be 5, and yours is over 6 now. And
she's going to be 6. Yeah, in June.
Going to be 6. And we were talking in the pre-show parent stuff. That's how life has changed, right? We're talking about the stuff that we were doing with our kids and what they do and how we were proud of them. And we are two people that love to talk about races, and we're super passionate. And and this is the kind of week that we love. Like, you and I will love to talk with anyone when we get a chance to about the Derby, about the Oaks, about these regally bred horses, top connections. And it's a really fun week heading in. And right now, I want to keep my fingers crossed. I don't want to jinx anything or say anything, but where we sit right now, a lot of the good top tier horses are all coming into the races feeling good, healthy. We haven't seemed like we've had as many defections as we've had in other years. I know we're still on Tuesday and things can happen between now and then. It's like, you almost don't want to say it, but that makes the race better when it feels like there's so much quality in the Oaks and the Derby.
Oh, of course. I mean, I know I gave out a pedigree fact earlier today, and then later in the afternoon, one of the horses I gave a fact on, Scratch from the Kentucky Derby, talking about Encino.
There you go. Yeah.
But this is just the nature of it. But we still have, I mean, not that Encino had no chance or anything, but we still have the marquee horses in. And it's just, it's such a whirlwind the whole week.
Really excited to talk about the Oaks and the Derby with Ren in a minute. But before we get there, we're going to pick out a race on the undercard on Friday on the Oaks Day, where we may see one of the bigger stars of the whole weekend in the first stakes race of the weekend on Friday.
For real.
Right? For race number 5 is the Grade 1 La Troienne. And
yeah, if people thought if people think my Kentucky Derby selections are chalky, just wait till I throw this pick out.
But this one is one of those races where I think they put this race early on the card because they know that it's not necessarily going to be the best betting race, but there is a lot of quality in here, and in particular, starting with Idiomatic, who she's just done nothing wrong in her whole career. She's 9 for 12, and her 3 losses, she was in the money in all of them. She was 8 for 9 last year, and she had such a like a nice campaign that extended over a year where she was just like clockwork. She ran about every month or so, and just showed up once or twice. She wasn't able to get the lead, and she showed that, hey, you know what? I can sit off a little bit early and make a move to the lead. And she just kept better and better. And she was in a division where there were really nice horses that like Nest and Secret Oath that were supposed to be a lot better than her, and she dusted them.
Well, I mean, and also, I mean, in this situation, the only thing I see here potentially happening in terms of the pace, like Darth Vader on the stretch out could show, be the up front. We could see that happen, but I don't think, that's going to matter to Idiomatic whatsoever. She can either go or she can sit off Darth Vader and wait for Darth Vader to back up. I mean, Darth Vader, to her credit, she ran really well in the Kentucky Oaks last year. But for me, I think Idiomatic is a slam dunk in this race. She is working very well ahead of this return. And as you said, just looking at the class lines of the horses she's defeated, if you look back at the Breeders' Cup Distaff itself, I mean, back in 7th that day was Adair Manor. And then she went on to run second, just beating ahead in the Grade 1 Beholder Mile, put up a 102 buyer figure out of there. And then she just recently won the Grade 1 Apple Blossom by 5.5 lengths.
You don't want to put those two words together, right?
I did not. No, I did not want to do that. I am.
When we talk for a living, you're going to have flubs.
I'm going to have flubs. I don't want to have expletive flubs. My voice is finally coming back. So after a brief cold or flu, I don't even know what, but it's coming back. But it's I mean, the class lines here. And we see Adair Manor, in some of the company lines of these other horses. For me, it's going to be Idiomatic. So it's more about, okay, well, how do we play underneath? I think Kajira is the second pick.
Yeah. And what's hard about trying to beat Idiomatic, particularly in this spot, is that the top 4 betting choices are all coming off layoffs.
Yeah.
So if your point was, she might need a race for her best, she hasn't raced since November. The problem is the horses that you're trying to beat her with, they're all in that same situation.
Exactly.
So they don't have that as an advantage of like recency, of more like maybe they're going to be a little bit fit or anything like that. The horses who have been running a little more recently, they do just seem overmatched by the top tier from a class standpoint. The horses down to the inside, like they would really, really need to step up, I think, to compete. And that was, what made it so hard about this race, trying to beat Idiomatic, because none of us are going to sit up and look at the favorite and say, yep, right away, we're going to try to find ways to beat her. But when you're looking at the other horses and how she'll be vulnerable, they just don't seem like they have what they would need to beat her in the spot.
And you have to also look at, I mean, Kajira, she's only been in against Older twice. She did beat them very nicely by 6.5 lengths last out in the Fall City. Back in 7th that day was Bellamore. And she had previously, or earlier in the season, gotten beaten 6 3/4 lengths by Idiomatic in the Grade 1 Spinster. And then out of the Fall City, Bellamore went on. She won the Houston Ladies Classic over Free Like a Girl, who's in this race. And then Bellamore was 3rd in the Azeri and 7th in the Apple Blossom. So you have some common opponent lines going on. But yeah, Kajira's been against Older twice. Pretty Mischievous, never in against Older. This will be her first try.
That's the concern, right? For me, and she's got a little bit of a longer layoff too, and she has to deal with Older and just better quality, right, than what we've seen Idiomatic deal with. And so and when you're talking about Idiomatic, also this barn has been so good off these extended layoffs. It's like it's another box to check where not only is this particular horse a horse that I don't think it'll be an issue with, especially with her running style, that I think she'll come out firing fine. Like you said, she's training really well in the mornings. But this barn has won the last 5 years. They've won with 24% of horses off a plus 180 day layoff in 5 years. Yeah, that's such a massive sample size of 280 horses. They've won with 67 of them coming off of this type of a layoff. This is nothing out of the ordinary for this barn. When the bigger barns that have more stock, they can get a little more aggressive with their horses, and they can train them to get them fitter, and they just know how to do that more. And we see that with Brad Cox and Brown and Baffert and those types of barns. But in particular, it's like there's just so many things that are good for her coming into this. Not to mention that mares a lot of times even get better from 4 to 5.
Yeah.
This is sometimes when they peak, right?
Well, especially, I mean, this is a daughter of Curlin.
Yes.
So I'm all about her. I mean, if anything, you can free square it, or you can just sit there and enjoy the show. But I think that something really crazy would have to happen. Like, she'd have to stumble out of the gate, or some other unforeseen, equipment malfunction,
something that you can, like, something that we can't project, right?
Correct.
When you're just looking at the race. And I agree with you. And the second horse for me was Kijera, because as you pointed out, you go through her form overall. She's only been on the dirt 4 times. 3 of them were wins. 1 of them was 4th when she had trouble when she was in the Alcibiades, and she was actually pretty solid that day in her first dirt start at that point in her career. And when we were talking about barns that are really good with particular things, Phil Bauer has won with 7 of their last 14 horses off of this type of a layoff. So literally half of the last horses at 6-1, 9-2, 5-2, 6-5, 9-5, 2-1, 8-1. So all different types of prices too. So real capable. I think
that work tab that you just popped up. I mean, look at that.
Right? I don't have knocks on her at all. It's just she just seems like she's a year behind.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, oh gosh, if she had any other field other than Idiomatic being in here,
I'd probably be picking her.
Yeah, exactly.
But
as it is, it just, like I said, it looks so tough. And I was trying to think to myself, my gosh, what can I bring to the table here? Because I'm just going to give you the 6-5 favorite. And then obviously Kajira is not a big price at 3-1. I actually, are you slightly surprised or not? I mean, I know she did win the Oaks last year. So to win a grade 1 on the track that they're going to be running on here, I can kind of understand why Pretty Mischievous is 5-2, but at the same time,
she shouldn't be. Yeah. She shouldn't be. If she might be like what you're saying, because she might be just a more well-known horse than Kijera.
Well, and I get it. I get it. The grade 1s, believe me, I understand, but it's grade 1 restricted 3-year-old company.
Yep.
So that's why I'm sort of just like, okay. I mean, I can see it. I understand why, but
and if she is, that might be an ice cold where you can go first choice over third choice, and you don't have to go A, B, and maybe you just get a little more value there because people know maybe this is Friday. Maybe a bunch of those people who were there on Kentucky Oaks Day last year are back again, and they know this name, and it's like, oh, I remember that.
That's
horse.
A great point.
I was drunk last year on this day, but I remember Pretty Mischievous. They're back again.
Yeah, they were being pretty mischievous, probably. But no, that is a very good point, also, because it bears repeating that morning lines are set based upon what the odds maker thinks the betting public is going to do, not who they personally think has the better chance.
Pretty Mischievous, your Oaks winner last year. She'll be starting her campaign along with a couple other.
I do think Free Like a Girl could make the Super, though.
She is such a cool horse. She's a Louisiana bred that I got to see run a few times at Louisiana Downs. She won the Filly and Mare Cup Sprint a couple years ago when I was covering their races and doing a lot of the simulcast stuff for them. She is so cool, and I love horses like this, that the connections, they've done a fantastic job campaigning her, because they don't put her over her head, but they wait for the right spots when they step her up against open company or against better horses, because you don't want to have a nice horse and ask them to do too much, and you can ruin horses like that, Ren. You've seen it before all the time when you put horses over their head or they're not ready for something.
Can rip their heart out.
And now at this point, she's a 5-year-old. She's seasoned. She's got 38 starts and 17 wins, and she's faced good company. She's not in the caliber of the top 3, really, from a class standpoint, but you're absolutely right. Could she hit the board, or if one of those 3 doesn't fire with their best effort and they're not 100% ready off the bench, she could absolutely get in the mix there and be just a really honest horse that she could punch up in a race like this, and be competitive with a few of them.
That's what it looked like to me, but I mean, you just never know, right? But I do
Mhm.
have to say, just from the pedigree standpoint, I do love that the La Troienne is named the La Troienne because La Troienne herself wasn't like this big racehorse, but she is one of the most important blue hen mares we have in the breed. It's my favorite female family. In fact, we have the 8 bells on the card, right? The
Yep.
eight bells herself was part of Family 1X. And you have a number of Derby winners from Family 1X. You've got Sea Hero, Go for Gin, Smarty Jones, Super Saver. You've got Derby runner-ups like Easy Goer, 8 bells herself. You have Bluegrass Cat. Did I mention Sea Hero as one of the Kentucky Derby winners? I probably did. I'm going on little sleep. But in any case, it's a prolific family, and I could talk about it for just ages. But I love that she has a race in her name. One of the most successful horses to come from her family, or an important horses, would be Buck Passer. And even though he wasn't a Derby horse, he won the Travers. But
Yes.
yeah, just incredibly important family. And I mean, you have the influence. You see the influence a lot. I mean, for the Derby itself, actually, when we do talk about that, Catalytic is actually part of that family.
So let's
So I think
flip
that's pretty wild.
flip to a little later on the Friday card. We have the Kentucky Oaks,
Yes.
and when Breeders' Cup races and Oaks and Derbies and the big races, when I think of them, what I'm hoping for is I'm hoping we get kind of a snapshot of the best horses from each of the circuits coming together and figuring out who really is the best. And this feels like that in the Oaks more than I can ever remember, where you've got these like 4 or 5 horses from different spots that have been good,
And
and
I'm
they are all
torn.
coming in and like feeling good right
Yes.
now. Like Torpedo Anna was so good in the fantasy coming back off the long layoff, and she's run well here at Churchill before. Tarifa has done so little wrong. She's won 3 in a row, back-to-back graded stakes. Then towards the outside, you've got Ways and Means. She was the real buzzy horse last year after she broke her maiden. She's had legitimate trouble in back-to-back starts. Nobody wants to give Power Squeeze a lot of respect. All she does is keep winning. And,
Yeah.
just like flying under the radar and keep winning, and she never gets bet when she does. And then you got your Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner and Leslie's Rose, who won the Ashland and earned a 95 Buyer speed figure in doing so. Like, as good of a renewal of the Oaks as you could ever ask for.
It's so tough. I'm so torn. I mean, I look at it. If I was hard pressed to narrow it down to 2 horses, let's say narrowing it down to 2 horses, I would probably be torn between Torpedo Anna and Leslie's Rose. But I'm torn because I could see Ways and Means. I could see Power Squeeze. And how cool would it be for Daniel Centeno? I mean, my gosh, he is one of the coolest guys. Recently got the George Wolf Award. Obviously, Tampa, that connection. I have a soft spot for him.
Yep.
And I mean, I could see any of these horses. Tarifa, I'm going to fade only because I'm going to go with the angle that I think she's more of a horse for course. Maybe I'm wrong because she ran really well at Keeneland, but I just know that she's been running the fairgrounds. Maybe she can bring her A game here too. Very much possible. But at that shorter price, I don't want to take it.
You have to pick a few of them that you can't use all of them in the top tier, right? You got to take, like you're doing, you're taking your 2 or 3 that you're going to say, okay, I'm going to take these a few from the group. And those are the ones you're going to have to take a stand with, because you can't use every horse in here that makes sense. They all, so many of them make sense. And the one that you were kind of hitting on that I keep, the more and more I've had conversations with people about this race and I keep coming back to, is I really feel that Torpedo Anna is just going to run a good race, and she should be able to get a pretty good trip. And I'm not convinced that a lot of the others will get great trips because they're going to be really wide. And a lot of these horses, Ren, are kind of looking for similar running tactics, right? They
That's
kind
a
of
great point.
want to be not far off the lead, and we can't have 7 or 8 horses all sitting third 2 lengths off, right? It's just not going to work that way.
No.
And it could for Torpedo Anna, though. She could work out the trip that she wants down there, and she is definitely going to be one of the 2 or 3 that's in all of my exotics.
Yeah. And you know what? And I do want to also just to say to Tarifa too, to be fair. I mean, she had trouble in her Churchill start also. It's not like, oh, okay, well, she just didn't fire that. There was, not the best of beginnings there. It's hard to, also start from the rail. I just, like I said, if the horse is that shorter price, and this is the thing, I'm willing to like look for holes in form or some sort of maybe perceived vulnerability when I think a horse is a short price, because we'll talk about the Derby in just a bit. But in this case, and I love the connections, I love the horse, I love the pedigree, I think she's classy as can be. It's just, I think there are better options here in this regard. And like, yeah, Torpedo Anna, just watching the way she won the fantasy, it's like she took pleasure in drawing off and basically proving, yeah, ladies, I'm way better than you. Sayonara. And that was just the first off the layoff.
And she has every right to take a big step forward. She didn't come back quickly either, which I like. So she's had at least a month now. So she's not like wheeling back real quick and you're worried about that much of a bounce. And with the running style, again, I worry less about the bounces, I think, with horses that have the nice running style where they can stalk, kind of pounce, not necessarily a horse who's going to be carving out the fractions, running her eyeballs out throughout. She'll sit nicely and be able to fall into a really good trip.
I mean, my gosh, are we seeing again just another one of these like McPeak diamond in the roughs? He got her for what, $40,000?
And so many different stories in this race that are fascinating. You got the juvenile fillies winner, who she had a couple interruptions this year, so she didn't get started as early as she would have liked. And that just makes you even more want to upgrade her effort in the Ashland, because you feel like, gosh, she might have not even been close to her best, and she could step forward. I mean, we can go through all of these fillies. That's what we want in races like this, where they all come in such fantastic form. So the couple that you're, at least right now, 5 days out, that you've kind of got on a little, I guess we're only 3 days out now, a few a tier above Torpedo Anna and Leslie's Rose.
Well, yeah, and obviously, as you were pointing out, I don't love the 14 hole for Leslie's Rose, but I will say this. I mean, we have to see if Torpedo Anna can go the mile and an eighth. I think she can. I mean, I'm thinking. I mean, you got if Medaglia d'Oro is your sire's a sire, and I think she can do it. In class is class, right? Sometimes they just dig in and they get it done. And because let me see here, I'm just double checking on something else regarding the siblings here. Were they sprinters? Yeah, I mean, you have miler sprinters, but by different sire for one of the half siblings. But in any case, I look at Leslie's Rose and I kind of love the idea of a filly that's out of a mare by Galileo on the dirt at Churchill. I don't know. It's just like from a pedigree standpoint, I kind of love it.
It's like harmony.
I kind of love it. And I have I have a really fun fact for you on this, by the way. So Leslie's Rose is actually a half sister, or her mother is a half sister to the dam of Grandmo the First.
Wow.
Yes. How do you like that? And if that weren't juicy enough in terms of, the pedigree connection, another thing that's pretty cool is that, and I'm just pulling it back up here because I have all these notes all around me right now, as you can probably imagine. Let me see here. I'm pulling it up. I'm pulling up. Because, I can't remember everything off the top of my head. Oh, okay. So not only is the mom a half to her mom, but the mom is also a half sister to Kentucky Oaks runner-up, my Miss Sophia.
Really nice bloodlines there.
Yes.
And ones that are, like you said, what I like to do when looking at pedigree, it makes you smile when you see the similarities, when you see the horses who have run the same races at the same tracks, who have done the same things. It doesn't always work out that way, but you feel like they were made for these races sometimes. Yes. Right? Literally bred for races to be in these spots. So a fantastic field of fillies in the Oaks. In the Derby, you kind of teased a little bit that you are going to go chalky in here with fierceness.
And I own it.
And you own it. And he's, for a horse who's an enigma when he's had some bad races, he's very simple for how you're going to support him or how you're not. And if you just think that you're going to get the better version of him that can sit a nice trip, that can be forwardly placed, that they figured things out, that he may have, for as much as people don't want to do this, you can make excuses for his poor performances. People don't like doing that with good horses. They don't. They want to think that good horses should just be able to overcome everything. And that's not always the case. Sometimes
isn't that great though?
Right?
They think that they're supernatural and they can just sprout wings.
It's amazing when I hear it's like, well, they didn't do that. They weren't good. Well, that's why they didn't do it, because the horse got bumped at the start on both sides, was wide going into the turn, was coming off the bench and needed the race, and then took a nice step forward. So, that's the thing about this horse. You can be in either of those campaigns and either of those camps. And that's what's great about, gambling and what we do here in horse racing. Tell us a little bit more about why you think fierceness is head and shoulders above.
Okay. Well, I mean, you went over, you said that really nicely and succinctly. Like, do I love 5-2? No, I don't love 5-2. You kidding me? Like, look, if people follow me at Tampa, they know that I am not scared of taking swings. I play horses all the time and miss, but I'm not there to give you the favorite, So, and sometimes it works out, like, a little pat on the back here. I gave out a 14-1 shot the other day that won. So it's not that. It's if I think the horse is the best, I have certain criteria for the Kentucky Derby that horses have to meet. It includes what they've already done on the track, what their pedigree is, what they look like physically, and how I think that they're working over the actual surface at Churchill Downs. And he meets every criteria I'm looking for. And in terms of the, two poor performances, I kind of always roll my eyes when I hear, what fierceness are we going to get today? Because it's like, what fierceness do you want to come out after, for example, in this Champagne? If you watch the start of that race, he like leaps out of there and he's slipping and sliding because the track was just like a slip and slide itself. And it was just, whatever. It didn't work out that day. And then it's not because I don't think he can handle an off track, obviously. It's just the start compounded things. And then in the Holy Bull, not only does he get bumped on either side, but then he's carried between the two horses for several strides out the gate. And as you mentioned, the trip wasn't a ground-saving trip, and he had rushed up, and he hadn't run since the juvenile. I mean, what do you want from this horse, right? They're not going to crank him up to 100%, come in for his first start as a 3-year-old. And so I thought, despite all that, he still ran well. And I think the real fierceness is the fiercest performance that we saw in the Breeders' Cup. I think it's the fierceness that we saw in the Florida Derby. I do not think that this is a need the lead type. I've seen some people think that he's going to go to the lead. I don't think that. I think he's going to sit off. And I think he's got a great post to basically keep himself safe from a lot of the melee that happens out of the gate. And that's
something else. Prefer there than the inside.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't want to be where Sierra Leone is. No way.
No. And you've got plenty of track to like go ahead and, get your position before that turn. And here's the other thing. I loved all the debate about post 17, which she's not even in post 17 anymore. Even that's a moot point.
Just so silly.
But it's just stupid. Okay. First of all, for anybody who's listening who has not seen this yet, there was no starting gate until 1930, number one. Number two, in that starting gate, okay, well, first of all, you have to factor in so many things. What particular horse was in that particular stall in that particular Derby, and what was their particular running style?
And what was their odds a lot of times?
What were their odds? Right? Exactly.
Where they weren't even horses that had chances. So
no.
I'm not a trend. Trends are fun, and with the Derby, people are always going to bring them up because it's a unique experience. And
I love a fun fact.
And but they're fun to talk about, but you can't base everything off of that, right?
No.
Just because a horse didn't win from 17, but they could from 16 or 18. But there's a magical cursed halo in the 17 starting.
Yeah,
gate, right? that kind of that's. I know it sounds absurd, but that's sort of what that angle is telling.
No, that's exactly what that sounds like. Yeah. So it's so much better now that he's in post 16 now, because even though he's still the 17 horse,
evil spirits from the 17th, are not going to be in the 16th starting gate.
Right. Well, that's why. Oh, okay. Because there have been 4 winners from the 16 hole, but 0 winners from the 17 hole, but there's been 2 winners from 18. There's been 1 from 19, and there's been 2 from 20.
Right? Jockeys aboard these horses too. There's just so many factors. It's like when I get
start of the race. And not only that, but for a lot of the time we had that auxiliary gate.
Different gates, weather. for some of the
Weather,
time too,
yes.
for these horses that it's raining and they didn't want it, or just so many little things to where you can't use something like
No.
that. And yeah,
Silly.
it's not as if Rapoli and Todd Pletcher need good luck. Those guys have had plenty of things to happen for them. But
Yeah.
in the particular circumstance of having a really live Kentucky Derby horse going into the race,
I know, having to have scratched Uncle Mo, having to scratch Forte, and now
about as bad as you could like. So for nobody is going to say that those guys are down on their luck and they've had right. They're very successful. They have great horses. They win races. They win in life. But in this spot, they might. It would be sort of karmatic for them to at least get an opportunity and a good trip, and to see their horse have an opportunity to run their race.
Yeah. And have you been watching that? He looks spectacular.
He does. There's nothing.
He's thriving.
There's nothing negatively about the way he looks. Like, he's getting better off that race.
And the pedigree is stupendous. Like, I mean, he's got everything you want to go this mile and a quarter distance. He's got it all. Like, and I just love it. And I mean, so I'm not going to go against him. And then, give me some more chalk. I'll take another sip of water. Cause I like Sierra Leone next. I, like you said, though, I mean, that 2-hole can be problematic for him. But this horse is over. He's proven, I guess he's like the flip side of the coin. He's proven that he will overcome obstacle after obstacle, and he's just a no short of being undefeated. And if it weren't for that rail bias on Remsen Day, he might well still be undefeated. I mean, I think the only other horse on that Remsen Day card who closed as far back as he did, and they still didn't win either, was Senor Buscador, who then went on to win the Saudi Cup.
And it's crazy too, because I forget how, like, Sierra Leone actually was about a length in front, and Dornoch came back, and
he came back on him.
See how much that rail and the inside sort of helped,
And he did it after bouncing, and Dornoch came back on him after bouncing off the rail. Did you see that?
Which was remarkable. The assessment was right, and I hadn't really been thinking about it in that case either until David Aragona kind of perfectly mapped it out and said, aren't the top two just kind of fascinating in how different they are from each other? In so many ways. Like, running style is the most obvious one, but just like the horses and the way we talk about them, as Sierra Leone being the real consistent horse that we all just kind of expect to come running. And then for a lot of people, it's more of the, hey, is fierceness going to be a Jekyll or a Hyde? But his really good races could be so good. They are very different in their demeanor, their running style, the way, their reputation, the way that they're discussed, but they're going to be pretty close on the board, and at definitely your top two betting choices in here. Yeah.
And, here's another fun fact for you. So Sierra Leone and Forever Young, their moms are 3/4 sisters. What are the statistical chances of that happening? There's got to be an actuary out there who can like crunch that data and just tell us what the statistical probability of two. I mean,
it's like grains of sand.
Yeah,
you know
right.
I mean? Like, you're thinking about that stars in the sky, and
it's nuts.
It's like that, and they show up. So at least from a talking point, let's mention that one, because I think you and I would both agree that it's inevitable that Japan is going to win one of these sooner than later.
I'm not sure what to think of this horse. What do you think? Because I see him, and to me, he looks like just sort of and I've not seen him in person. So, and obviously you can't get the full picture just looking at the screen. He doesn't look as physically imposing as some of these others.
And I have I'm not positive about him in this race, but I'm so impressed with the overall and just the way Japan runs their operation. And
absolutely.
We see them win all these big races. And so it's maybe it's not this one this year, but it is going to happen soon. And so my point in that is, I don't necessarily love him as my top pick. He'll probably be in some of my like pick 4s and 5s where I'll lead into this race and key on the other horses I like leading up to the Derby. And then I can throw the Derby with a couple fun horses,
Yes.
But what I'm interested in is with Forever Young, he's had trips in his last 2 races that are kind of trips that you might need in the Derby, where he's been wide, really wide in the Saudi Derby. And then at the UAE Derby, he didn't really face that tough of a group, but he was kind of wide all the way around. So at least I've seen him overcome some adversity. I think
Right.
he's a real nice racehorse too in that. I just don't know. Like, I agree with you. I don't know if he's quite up to the top levels. Any bust out horse that you would include, or any of the big prices that you think bottom of the exotics, horses that you've been following along with, or you want to run a big race?
Well, just to be clear, I mean, I will say Catching Freedom is my clear third choice. I know he's the third choice on the board. So again, more chalk and I'll take a sip of water. But if you watch that Louisiana Derby, I'm going to use the word spectacular again here. That was spectacular. The way he was so wide, and he was bumping. Once he came off the turn, he was bumping with a horse who was inside. It kept him from changing his lead right away. And he still was making up ground. And then he changed his lead and he just flew home. I was so impressed by that. I love the pedigree. And then, Honor Marie, you've already got a win over the track. This looks like a horse who's coming forward. He's got the nice running style, where I think he's going to, this type of pace scenario here for this particular Derby sets up for him. But I will say, if you're looking for some bombs that make sense, I think Catalytic makes a ton of sense. And I know people will be like, what? But here's the deal, okay? So this horse, they only had him go 2 turns for the first time in the Florida Derby. And I know he got beat 13 and a half lengths there by Fierceness. But this is a horse that I think I'm not as a win necessarily. But
that's what we're looking for here. The big prices that can outrun their odds and can give you a good run for your money.
Yes.
The board or underneath spots at a big price. He can be in the race. He can be involved in this race.
Exactly. And I mean, here's the thing with him. I mean, to me, it's actually shocking that they only took him 2 turns for the first time that day, because his pedigree wants distance. I know I mean, okay. So here's the deal. Like this is the one that I was telling you before. Is from Family 1X, which has all these Derby winners in it, Derby runners-ups in it. But also this horse, and this is where I think people kind of miss out. They only look at like what they see in terms of pedigree, what they see in the form. And that's, I mean, and to be fair, a lot of people don't know what they're looking at anyway. I mean, they might have some idea of a sire or dam,
sure.
If it's a distance. Thankfully, with DRF, you can click, if you have Formulator, you can click on these horses and it'll show you their past PPs too from the family. So that's great. But if you don't know pedigree, like somebody like me, you don't know some of the stuff that's happening. So basically like the duck, right, that you see float that on the water and he looks all nice and tranquil, but the little feet are going, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on in the back of that pedigree. And this one in particular happens to be bred 4x4 to AP Indy. And that is stamina. And so I think he's very interesting from that perspective as an underneath type horse. I root for D. Wayne Lucas with Just Steel. I think this is a talented horse. He's got a lot of underbelly to him, a lot of seasoning. He's got a very nice pedigree. He's a very big horse, So, when you've got a 20 horse cavalry charge, you want a horse who can take some abuse. At the same time, sometimes big horses, not all, but sometimes big horses, if they do get knocked around, it takes them a little bit longer to get back into good stride. But I think that's a horse that should not be overlooked either. I know I feel like the Wise Guy horse is kind of turning into Just a Touch. I might be wrong on that.
I think Just a Touch, and I'm hearing the buzz for Just a Touch and Honor Marie, I would say. I think those are the two that are getting but the thing is, they're logically horses that are doing well, training well, lightly raced. Like, you can understand why people would be excited about their prospects in a race like this.
Of course. And I will also say Just a Touch looks like a big, beautiful boy. And he is certainly bred for this type of challenge. He's probably I kind of have a little horse crush on him because he's so pretty. But at the same time, I'm just a little cautious of the fact that it seems to me so far, at least, he is lightly raced. So we just really don't know all the dynamics with him yet. If he likes to be kind of close to the pace and he kind of, he got, outfinished last out. I just feel like he gets outfinished again here now going the mile course. I might be wrong. I could totally be wrong.
He's not as high. I'm not as high on him either. I don't really I don't dislike him overall, but it's this is the point in a race like this where it's just the like others more kind of thing, right? It's he would not shock me to see him be in a good spot and turning for home. He's in the mix there. I just think some others are going to
Yeah.
outfinish him. Others could just are a little faster early, or maybe can, close a little stronger, like we saw with Sierra Leone. And it's
I mean, the thing, I could like give you a little like a note on both. Okay, so Forever Young, we already kind of went over him. Track Phantom, with him, I'm a little. I have a friend who has part of this horse, so of course I would root for this horse for that friend. If I'm looking at it completely unbiased, I'm a little. I mean, Quality Road, obviously, he could carry his speed. We know that he set 2 track records. First with the Florida Derby and then the Dawn. But there's some more speed on the bottom side. I mean, the mom won the Lexus Raven Run. The second dam is by Trippy. I don't know about a mile and a quarter here in the Kentucky Derby. Maybe he can make the board. I think West Saratoga is a great story. I think he would have to vastly improve.
Yeah.
Endlessly, that is just such a turf heavy pedigree. It's turf every which way you look at it. Domestic Product, I do think he could grind his way into an in the money finish. I really do.
And this might be the situation where, because it's the Derby and it's bet like a different animal, where those connections aren't getting over bet.
Yeah. I mean, this horse, he's closed into slow paces. He
finished in front of Fierceness.
Yeah. And he and Grambo the first in the Tampa Bay Derby, they were bumping around with each other down the stretch, closing into that slow pace. So I think that you should not discount the other Chad Brown by any stretch of the imagination. And that is a big, beautiful horse. And I don't anticipate, I know he's by Practical Joke, but he's out of a Painter mare, and Painter brings a ton of stamina. He was second in the Belmont. He won the Haskell. Painter himself is by Awesome Again, who was a classic winner. And then Painter's mom, full sister to Tiz Now, 2-time classic winner. So you've got enough stamina on the bottom side with Domestic Product, I think. And I think he's a horse. If we've got like a hot pace, if there's a meltdown, I think you kind of want him on your ticket.
Ren, Carothers, Ren, it is such a blast chatting with you. When it comes to pedigree, you absolutely are one of the best. You, like you said, you enjoy it. And what I like is when we're handicapping races together, sometimes there's some things that I can tell that are things that you may have picked up from Matt too, or things that you do that he also does, right? I'm not going to give him all the credit. He may have picked some of these things from you, but I don't know. There are certain things I love, like when you're going through the charts, and that's the thing that because I watch people sometimes and they'll talk about, oh yeah, this horse comes out of a race and they beat 2 next out winners. Go another step. Go one more step further. Tell me who they were and what races they won, or
give
me a little bit more about them.
How often do people just stop at the first step?
Right. And that's it. And that's,
you have to qualify it. You have to qualify it.
Because if they won in really low levels and dropped way down, it's not as relevant. But they might have won really strong races and beat other really nice horses. You can always go one other level. And even if that particular moment, maybe that didn't help you right then with that race or that angle or that bet, it's going to help you out some other time down the line. Just like when you're looking at that pedigree, it's going to be something else that you can store in the memory bank there that might like raise a little red flag one day, or the antenna will stand up when you start to associate things. You just got to always take that next step. And I never, ever have to question that with you when I'm watching at Tampa and when I'm listening. We always know that you put in the work. Speaking of that work, this week, what else? What can we expect from you? Anything other than Tampa? ABR stuff?
Okay, so no, not ABR stuff, but I will be working at Derby. I'm actually hosting a event at. I'm not the host, but I'm like going to be hosting and doing a moderating a session at the Kentucky Derby Museum for a welcome party on Thursday, with Eddie Olczyk and also Chantal Sutherland. And then and then Friday and Saturday, I will also be doing some moderating panels with famous jockeys, Hall of Famers. I'm talking about like Gary Stevens and Chris McCarron, and we got Chantal and Sandy Hawley and Kuru. I love his wife. Kuru is amazing, like unbelievable. If you ever have a chance to talk with Sandy Hawley and Kuru, they are a riot. They are the best. I adore them. But then after that, yeah, I'm going to be looking more to like collecting some media to share. But yeah, we have a closing weekend at Tampa in the midst of all of this. So I'm trying to handicap that, do this, that, the other. I will say my little bag of tricks going forward for any of you guys who are listening now, just a few, just to your point, talking about charts and stuff, like, because what you said made me think of something very much that is a little bit of something that people overlook, right? So when you're looking at these charts also, and let's say you have a horse, and you're like, oh, well, this horse beat this really good horse who went on to be a stakes winner. Always also put it into context, right? Did that horse have problems in that race, that horse beating the stakes winner? They just beat it because it's kind of fluky. You have to put that in context too. Like, for example, if you have a front runner who fades off the front because something happens, and then this plotter comes up and wins, and then you go, oh, well, this plotter beat this stakes horse. You know what I mean? So you got to put those things in context. I would also say from pedigree, little cues. I love to give this out because these are two of my favorite things. All right. Going forward, anytime, especially now we got baby season coming up. If you guys see anything like Curlin over AP Indy and one of his sons, like the mare is by AP Indy or one of his sons, that is a very potent cross. You're going to want to like that. Same thing with Nyquist over anything AP Indy. So those are two of my little bags of my tricks.
Ren, we will be following along with you. Best on social media, probably the easiest place to follow along with all your work on
X.
Twitter.
I like X most.
X, there we go. So, oh gosh, it's such a blast catching up with you. Every time we talk, I feel like sad that I haven't got to see you and you and Matt in a while or talk to you.
You got to come out to the Derby next time.
I definitely will, and I will hopefully, fingers crossed, be at the Breeders' Cup down in Del Mar this year. And so some big events sometime very, very soon. Please tell Matt I said hello, and I hope the family is doing really well. And I hope you guys score nice this weekend, right?
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you, Gino.
Thank you, Ren, and thank all of you for tuning in to the first of many of the Friday stakes previews. We'll have individual videos for all of the stakes races on the Friday and Saturday undercard, and then I'm going to put them all together on the podcast for folks that just want to sit back and listen to the audio and have all the races in a row in order for them. So thanks again to Ren. Thanks to everyone for listening in, and we'll be back with a lot more racing previews coming up soon.